Right, early start after a long night. It was transfer deadline day. That's the order, isn't it, of the words? And it's an early start today because I'm going to London to film part of a documentary. I'm going to be interviewed for something that FIFA have organized called Moment of Truth. Very interesting. We're going to dissect moments in the history of the World Cup. So I've got a long list of them that I have to deal with, including two Maradona moments against England, Owen against Argentina, and some of the stuff that Spain did too. But this is not why I'm here. I'm here to have a look at what happened in the transfer window. So let me put this and then we can talk a bit. It was, as always, a very exciting day, the transfer deadline day. And yes, a coffee's coming in a minute, but just wanted to do a little bit of an introduction. Not only, for instance, the very expensive move of Balague from Fiorentina to Juventus, top of the ranking in terms of expenditure, but some clever moves like Dele Alli or Van de Beek, for instance, going to Everton, and let's see if they can recover the form under Frank Lampard. I think 4 months is not enough, especially for those two players. It'll take a little bit more. In the Premier League, Newcastle have spent themselves more than any of the Spanish teams, so things are already changing there, but they didn't go mental in terms of overspending. But certainly there's a couple, Chris Woods and Bruno Guimaraes, two very good signings. Luis Diaz for Liverpool is the kind of forward that Liverpool likes to have up front. Very pacey, goal scorer, and also very disciplined. Ferran Torres is one of the best young strikers around, or forwards or wingers, and has gone to Barcelona alongside Dani Alves and of course AUBA. And in Spain, Martial going to Sevilla. It's for me one of the cleverest signings, with Corona as well from Porto. So the attack of Sevilla has been refreshed. They are the best defense in La Liga, but they're the sixth attack in La Liga. They needed new energy and they're going to bring it with them two players. Let's not forget for Barcelona as well, Adama Traore. The problem is they brought 4 new players, right? With Torres, Alves, Traore and AUBA, and only 3 can be joined the Europa League squad. So I think Adama Traore may just be left out. Daniel Was has gone from Valencia to Atletico Madrid after Atletico Madrid lost Trippier. Another 3 things that happened that are interesting in La Liga is Lo Celso going from Spurs, of course, to Villarreal. I do like this player. He needs minutes, and we'll see his quality. He will adapt perfectly, I think, and very quickly to Villarreal. Brian Hill, who hasn't had a lot of time either at Spurs, now he's got the possibility of shine at Valencia. And Rafael Alcantara, has gone to Real Sociedad. I think he needs to get his physical form before he actually makes an impact, and that may take a little while. But the ones that I want to talk to you about are AUBA to Barcelona and what happened to Dembele. But first, let me have a coffee and a bit of breakfast. Are we all set? Coffee here. Anyway, the 2 stories I wanted to tell you. First of all, AUBA. He travelled to Barcelona on a private jet. There were some reports that he's just gone on his own back, decided to go to see what happened. No. Barcelona had told him, we want you. He had told Arsenal, I only want to go to Barcelona. So next it was, how could Barcelona convince Arsenal to either let him go or pay a big enough percentage of his wages? Well, it got to a point late in the afternoon where it seemed like everything had broken down, because Barcelona had only available, if Dembele wasn't leaving, which as the day progressed it became very clear that he wasn't going to, 1.7 million euros. That's all they had available for wages and transfer fees. So they couldn't pay Arsenal, really. Yes, AUBA had said, whatever you want to pay me, I'll take it. There is a minimum that you have to pay. It cannot be like 0 wages. So that 1.7 was going to go to AUBA. The plan was, if he was let out free, then Barcelona could pay more wages next season, some of them to compensate the fact that these next 4 or 5 months he's only going to earn only 1.7 million euros. Anyway, as I said, from Arsenal, the feeling was like it's not going to happen. the financial distance is too big. But two things were playing in the favour of Barcelona. Aubameyang was desperate to leave to Barcelona, even though he had said that his dream was to play for Real Madrid. And quite clearly Arsenal were happy to let him go. Arsenal feel that at the pace football is at the moment, with the demands that you have as a striker, without the ball for instance, with the need of discipline, not so much that he was a bad egg, but his timekeeping hasn't been great, ever. That's the only thing. What they say at Arsenal is that he's a good guy, but probably the pace of the game was too much for him at this stage. The pace at Barcelona is different, of course, and he has the intelligence to run into space, to link up, a lot of things that are in his head already, and he's a goal scorer. Anyway, so the only way for the whole thing to happen was for Arsenal to say, you know what, he can go for free. And that's what happened. I broke the news. As with these things, when it happens, it's because you got a lot of hours behind that, you know, looking after your sources, being respectful to them. Eventually I got the information that he was going to go on a free, and I put it on Twitter. Then he went on the BBC webpage, and that was it. Once he was there, a medical was passed at 10 o'clock in the evening, and then because he is on a free, they didn't need to really announce it at send the papers at midnight. They didn't actually. They came later on, and then in the morning, this morning, even though you probably will, well, you surely will see this after the announcement and after the presentation. As I said, it's going to be interesting to mix what Xavi has, because they're not really, you know, for the 4-3-3 that he wants to play, quite clearly he needs specific roles, and I don't think Adama, yes, is a winger. Ferran Torres has to decide if he's a winger or a striker. Aubameyang, not the ideal striker, Luke de Jong neither. But I think Xavi is actually having to make do with what he has. Dembele is an interesting situation. What do you do with Dembele? Well, Barcelona said quite clearly, you either leave or reduce your wages big enough for Barcelona to get, for instance, Morata. It became too late anyway at the end, but none of that happened because Dembele didn't leave. Now, if the proposition was leave or reduce your wages, the third option, of course, is that actually he stays. If he stays, the threat was that he was not going to play. More on that later. But it's been a political game being played here in which he's a little bit the victim. The story has been told all the time from Barcelona point of view, which was that he doesn't want to reduce his wages. He's not a good boy. You signed those wages as well. You signed that contract. And by the way, Dembele only received one renewal offer, which was very, very low. There was no negotiations. That's what the Dembele camp says. And that's not acceptable. Barcelona saying he wanted to renew, or wants to renew still maybe, with a 40 million euros sign-on fee and about 30 million euros gross every season, and that they cannot afford that. In the middle of that battle, quite clearly, the Catalan press sided with Barcelona, pointed out the fact that Dembele didn't want to go and how bad that was, but it got to a point in which Barcelona, trying to get rid of Dembele, made a lot of calls. Spurs thought about it, but realised that it was too expensive. Manchester United, really, they weren't interested in the last few days. Chelsea the same. They weren't after him at all in this market. There was a problem of financial fair play, that they had to get rid of players, but generally there wasn't also enough interest. PSG, according to the Dembele camp, had a verbal deal with the player and had to talk to Barcelona. They did speak to Barcelona, according to Barcelona, and Barcelona offered 20 million, asked for 20 million euros for somebody that's leaving for free. Interestingly enough, and the contract 20 million euros. If you want him in the summer, it'll be 40 million euros, which is his sign-on fee. But there was a U-turn, completely U-turn from PSG 24 hours before the transfer window closed. He went like, we don't want him, the stories are not true, everything is false. But in fact, what was happening is that on one hand, they didn't want to pay Barcelona 20 million. Barcelona said that they were offered players, they weren't interested in those players either. But more importantly, it would have broken the harmony, something so important for Pochettino. What would have happened with Di Maria if Dembele had arrived? And what's important in the next 4 months of the season, having constructed and built a very strong harmony, is that if that breaks, won't be good for the team. So the whole thing was pushed aside. Dembele was not going to go to PSG. That was clear 24 hours before the transfer window shut, and there was no other options. Despite the fact that about 9 o'clock in the evening, Laporta said, we've offered something new to Dembele, see what he thinks. There was nothing new. So what now? Well, now I think Xavi, who has always said, I don't want to leave a player like this on the stands, before it actually became clear that Barcelona were threatening to do that, he wants Dembele. He needs Dembele. And I think already last night, there were enough indications from the club that maybe they will relax their stand on that, and yes, he may play. Mbappe does it with PSG, and he's going to leave at the end of the season. Holland the same with Domen. He may leave at the end of the season. He's got a year and a half left in his contract. So why not Dembele? That's part of the excitement of what happened yesterday. Another thing that happened is that I released a new episode of the Pure Football Podcast. I spoke to Paul, Sarah and Ryan, 3 massive Everton fans who gave me even deeper idea and clearer idea of what's going on. I've called it what Lampard can learn from the Rafa Benitez period. So it's already in all the, platforms, and I hope you download it and let me know what you think of it. That's it for now. I'm going to London now. Bye.